Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Scott Week. And I am so excited to have our next guest on, Nellie Lowry, from the Seaside Highland Games, a very dear friend. Nellie, welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
I'm glad to be with you today.
I'm excited to have you because I know we wanted to talk about history, culture, the Scottish arts, of course, the Seaside Highland Games, but most importantly, I believe you are an expert in the field of genealogy.
Well, I've been working on it for a very long time.
And a lot of our viewers have questions about how they can do their own genealogy and where to do research. And I think that you are the foremost expert to be able to talk to and share with our viewers how they could go about maybe perhaps researching their own family lines. And so welcome and thank you for joining us.
You know, genealogy should always start with your parents. You start with you first, and then your parents and your grandparents. And then you go with dates and things like that. But to me, the most important things are the stories. And so you need to talk to your parents and your grandparents and your aunts and uncles and gather all the stories that you can about your family history.
Oh, this sounds wonderful. And it's true. I mean, you hear stories. We've all heard stories about grandparents and other family members. And I don't know if people actually take the time to write them down. And that is very important to whether, I think at this day and age of technology, you want to record that information. But in some way, shape, or form, either type it out or record it for posterity. That's so important. What a great tip.
You know, I was born in on a farm in Carroll, which is in the thumb of Michigan. And my father loved to talk about his family. His parents were born in Ontario, Canada, and he enjoyed going to visit his grandparents for Christmas and talked about the old ways. And my mother had a sister who was a genealogist, and she researched their family in Massachusetts and New York, and they had come to the Cape Cod area in the early 1600s. So she had a lot of history to research. But when John and I got married, he knew very little about his family because his grandfather had died when his father was only 9 years old. So there was not much history there. And I wanted to find out about his ancestors for the benefit of our children so they would know their family history. And so that's when I started to do research.
Wow. Well, and when you went ahead and started to do the research, where did you go to find
Well, we moved after college, we moved to San Diego in 1961, and then we moved to LA. John got transferred to LA, and the Los Angeles City Library has a wonderful genealogy department. And when I went there and researched, I found his Lowry's great great grandfather, Lowry, in Warren County, Tennessee, in the 1850s. So that was my beginning point to work on his family.
And when you started to discover some of his family history and your family history, at what point, and was it through your genealogy, did you find out that you had Scottish ancestry?
Well, um, I knew that my grandfather Graham was Scottish because he talked with that brogue that's so familiar with all the Scottish people. And actually, I knew that my great great grandfather, William Graham, was born in Scotland in 1810. So the first trip to Scotland, I went to the Edinburgh archives and looked for his baptismal record. And at that time, the books were all laid out on a table, and you had to go through each one of them and look for, I was looking for a William Graham born in 1810. So I looked through many, many, many baptismal books to try to find him. Today, it's totally different. Today, everything is alphabetized, everything is online, and you just put in your ancestor's name, and it just, magically appears and tells you all about it.
Well, that is amazing. I must say that I had no idea that you could actually do research that way. And of course, now a lot of people are going online, going to ancestry.com. Have you done anything online, any research online? Do you have any recommendations there?
I've done a lot of research online, but first I'm going to tell you about my visits to the libraries.
Yeah.
I love going to the libraries. I've been to the Mormon Library, of course, in Salt Lake City, which has a huge collection. But I've also been to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., which was really a marvelous event for me. But my most important one was the British Museum Library in London. And I was not eligible to use the British Library, but I had done my homework and I had taken my resource notes with me. And I knew that my great, great, great grandfather, Henderson, was in Enniskillen, Scotland, and his address was located in a book in the British Museum Library and only in that library. And so because I had my sources with me, they allowed me to give me a library card and let me use the library. And I did find him there. And it said that he had left for the Americas in 1848. And on another trip to Ireland, John and I actually visited that location.
Oh my goodness, that's phenomenal. But you had to go into the library to get this information.
Right. But today you can research online all day long, or you can do it at midnight in your pajamas, and you can go to many, many different sources. There's an awful lot of information online. Some you have to pay for, and some is totally free. But I really like to use the United States Census records. And they name every man, woman, and child from 1850 to 1950, every 10 years. The 1950 census has just become available to us. And so a lot of people are looking in 1950 now because there's a 72-year time period that they don't reveal this information. And so now people that were born before 1950 can find their name in the census records.
I had absolutely no idea. And I'll bet a lot of people watching right now didn't know that that was the case. But what another wonderful tip for researching your own family history. Throughout your research and the years that you've been doing this, what have been some of the milestones other than what you've already mentioned about your grandfather? What have been some other things that you found out, maybe some surprises?
Well, John's family, when I got into it, the research, they said his first Lowry ancestor came to America. They didn't know his name, but he was known as Crip Lowry because he lost a leg in the battle of the American Revolution, but they didn't know what battle. So I kept researching and looking in indexes for every Lowry I could find. And I finally found, after 20 years, a Lowry that had lost his leg in the Revolutionary War in South Carolina. And his name was John Lowry. So that was a surprise for us. But that documented what the family had talked about all those years ago. So I encourage people, if there are legends in your family, research them and try to prove them. Don't take it as just maybe somebody made up a story, and maybe they did, but I was able to prove this one, and that was really exciting.
That is exciting. And to that end, I wanted to ask you, how many years have you been researching your own family lines and doing your genealogy?
Well, I don't know, probably 40, maybe 50, I don't know. But I was genealogist for Clan Graham Society for over 30 years. And I just retired from that recently when they found somebody to take the load off my shoulders. I felt like I had enough to do and didn't really want to continue that. But during that time, I have a huge Graham database of over 300,000 Grahams and their descendants, down there. When people join a clan, quite often they ask you to fill out as much as you know about your family. And so I took that information from 35 years and tried to add to it by using census records. When I began researching, you didn't document anything. Today, everything has to be documented. And so using census record, I was able to document an awful lot of information.
Oh my goodness. So with all of this information, and you talked about the Graham database that you have you, or are you looking to maybe write a book of any kind? Is it relevant at this point in your life to write a book, or do you have it all online? How can you go about putting forth the information and sharing it, and letting people know that you were the one who did all of this research and put this together?
Well, there are lots of genealogy programs, and they are very easy to use. Some are expensive, some are easier to use than others. But I have a very good one that I've used, and I have all my data in there. But I did write a book on my father. He had lots of stories to tell. And so as he lived in Michigan and I was living in California, one time when I went back, I had him tell me a story about his family, and we recorded it on a tape recorder. And then when I came back to came back to California, he loved to talk about, and I think he enjoyed hearing his voice. And so he told me many, many, many stories on tape, and I transcribed all those and put that together with photos and historical information to make a memory book for him.
How wonderful. Do you have a favorite story or story that you would like to share of your father's?
Well, he was a farmer in Michigan, and he became a very successful farmer. And eventually we had a dairy farm. When I went to college, we were milking about 14 cows. When later in his life, he went to Australia on a trip. He loved to travel. And he went to Australia on a trip, and they had a circular milking parlor. And it would hold 13 cows at one time. So 13 cows would be giving milk at the same time. And, he enjoyed life to the fullest. Yeah.
Oh, that's phenomenal. As much I see, and you and John as well, before the pandemic and all these years of the Seaside Highland Games, and to kind of segue into a little bit about the games, if you don't mind talking about the games. So you and John started the games. I am trying to remember exactly which year.
Well, it was 2003 was our first game. And John had been pressured into starting a games on the north side of Los Angeles. because we have the Orange County Games and we have the San Diego Games, but we had nothing on the north side of Los Angeles. Well, San Fernando Valley is a little, didn't really have a suitable place, and it's a little hot in the summer. But we found the Ventura Fairgrounds was really in a great location, and it was laid out nicely. It had everything, but it was lacking grass. We would have liked a little bit more grass, but it's been we started in 2003, and we've had so many volunteers that help us to get the games going. And it's been a wonderful, we had 17 years before we had to cancel the last 2 years because of COVID. But we are going to go ahead. John and I are backing off, and the younger crew is taking over, including you. And we are planning on a full festival this year with bagpipes and Highland dancers and everything. Matter of fact, yesterday, we're going to have a Highland dance judge from Scotland come and be with us. So it'll be an exciting year, but we need lots of volunteers. So anybody can come and help.
Well, yes, and to that end, what I'm going to do is we will have a description down below or off to the side, depending on how you like to view your YouTube channel. And there will be links there. You can link to the Seaside Highland Games website and get some contact information. It is really fun to be at the games. There's so many different things you can do to help. Please come forward and volunteer your time. You won't regret it. It's something that you will want to do year over year and be a part of. What a phenomenal games. I can't believe we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of the games, Nellie.
It's just amazing. The dates for this year are October 8 and 9, and we have a wonderful party on Friday night, October 7th. And we have two events. We have a whiskey tasting at 5 o'clock at the Four Points Sheraton Hotel. And then we have a Scottish evening after that in the ballroom of the hotel. And we have about 300 people that attend that. And it's a lot of fun, buffet supper with a Scottish fashion show and entertainment and a silent auction. It's just a fun event. We love to be together.
Yes, it's very fun. So you're going to want to follow the Seaside Highland Games on their social media platforms and go to the website from time to time, pre-buy your tickets. The dinner does sell out. You're not going to want to miss it. We have some very exciting silent auction prizes.
We're looking for a new webmaster. Our webmaster has retired and gone to Scotland. So we need a new webmaster to, the website is very nice, but it needs a little tweaking right now. And so when a new webmaster comes forward, we'll get that done. But we are on all the social media platforms as well.
Wonderful. I will put all the links down below so everyone can stay tuned. And just to touch back on genealogy, if someone's interested in tracing their own family line and doing research of their heritage, now you've given us a lot of really great advice. I feel like, we can go to the census and we can start in some obvious places. But what advice would you give to a person who's starting out, has never done this before, where they should go to begin their research?
Well, as I said before, you always start with your parents, with you and your parents and your grandparents and so on and so forth. But there are a lot of sites online that will help you. Ancestry is a big one. But in today's world, DNA has become a highlight. And if you get into a brick wall with your genealogy, DNA might help you solve that. I had a long computer communication with Lowry in Texas, and we couldn't find any connection between our two families. But after years and years, we both got DNA, and we found out that her great-great-grandfather was the brother of John's Crip Lowry of the Revolutionary War. And so that made it very exciting, you know, to actually get a connection.
That is exciting. And speaking of DNA, have you had your DNA tested?
Yes, I had John tested for DNA, and the Y chromosome is the most important to me, which is only through the male line. It goes from father to son, you know, to grandfather and so on back the line. So it would be Lowry all the way in our case. I had my brother do the DNA testing for me because that would go from son to father to grandfather and so on back on the gram line. So far in the gram line, we have not come up with a really, really, really distant, you know, like 1700s gram. But with John, we were able to find that connection with another brother back in North Carolina in 1800.
Wow. So any surprises for either of your bloodlines?
Yeah, the DNA does cost money. And there are sales from time to time, and there are different companies according to what you want to find out. One of the companies works mostly on all of your heritage, like you and I could take it as well. And it would tell, you know, your 30% Scottish and 20% Irish and 10% English, or so, you know, whatever. And maybe a percent or two of Indian, American Indian.
Wouldn't that be fascinating? That would be really fun. So everyone should do some research. If you don't already have some genealogy done, it's a great fun time to be able to get on the computer as we're still coming out of the pandemic. I feel like there's still time that we can do some things maybe we haven't tried before. And this is definitely very interesting and fascinating. And is it also very addictive as well?
So, you know, I'm retired now, but I find great joy in helping people find their ancestors. So you may give them my email address. I do everything by email today because that way you can look it all up and then get back to them without having any, you know, problems.
No, I understand. Well, this is phenomenal information. It's been such a joy to have you on. And I just want to thank you and John, of course, for all the wonderful years of the Seaside Highland Games and all that you have done for the Scottish community over the years. It's been phenomenal. You both have volunteered countless hours and time to make sure that the rest of us have a good experience and a wonderful time at the games and also at the St. Andrews Society. So thank you so much for all that you've given to all of us.
Thank you. And hopefully you can do happy researching.
Yes, happy researching, everyone. Look for the links below. And please do reach out to the Lowrys and come out to the Seaside Highland Games and volunteer your time. It's really fun and it's a great, big, fun family. We hope to see you.
Thank you.
Nellie, thank you so much and goodbye for now.
Goodbye. Have a great day.